Okay, folks, we're back. We're back with a really early start. As early a start as I can get away with. We're back to painting the Kontaratoi. What? Spearman. Or Kontaratoi, or however you say them. The 8 bow stand. And I realized, Historicon's only a month away. And I got a shitload of stuff to paint still. Well, I'd like to use these guys. It's the whole purpose. I'm more interested in when I'm gonna get on the other side of Historicon to work on something different. More than I need to get these guys done so that I can use them. So, all right, let's get the bow guys out of the way. All right, we didn't get completely done, so our master guy that we're doing is, where's the master one? This one. Let's see how much. Okay, we need to add a little bit more white to the shield, to the yellow part. And then we need to bring the red up a little bit and then do the outside of the shield. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to prop this guy up over here, off screen. So I can see color-wise they have the right brightness. Oh, this is messed up. Why is the words all the way down here? Yep, there he is, Joe. Early start, yep. Yeah, we skipped the gym today. So, it's excruciatingly hot out there. Brutal heat index. So, I was like, if I'm going to go to the gym, then I need to shower before I go to the gym. And my daughter kind of had other plans, and I can take a day off. But I got a lot of stuff to do to get these guys Historicon ready. Because I have to paint 15 mounted figures, assuming these guys are done. I snap my fingers, they're done. 15 mounted figures and 8 of the guys in the command post. That's 23. That's about a guy a day. I can do it. I think the command post is going to paint itself. I have a really high motivation to get that done because those guys are going to look awesome. But, it takes time. So, and I will not be able to paint this weekend. So it's already one weekend that's shot for painting anyhow. Uh-oh. We got people waking up. Who we got here? Rick, there we go. Mr. Randy, welcome back. Yeah, I'm glad we didn't film the other night, or that would have been really bad. We were off to a late start. Both ACs going, and I couldn't tell that a single one of them was on. It's almost time for me to hibernate. Hey, we'll do videos in the wintertime. I'll catch you guys in October. Oh man, I gotta do this. I gotta re-wet this. Look how flimsy this is. Shit. I'll be right back. I'm not gonna turn the video off. I'll be right back. almost had to do that last night. And I just realized I got a little twinge of a headache. Okay. What a great evening that was. Well, I can only speak for the part I played in. I feel like we need to do more of that. I feel like we need to do more of those games, those type games. I like them. I like having a teammate, but I don't like having this crazy strategy where you have to try to pre-plan everything. Just kind of wing it. 'Cause I've never been a fan of Big Battle DVA. Never been a fan of it. I don't want to build more than one army. I don't want a game that lasts longer. Well, our game kind of lasted a while, but that was just because of the conditions that happened there. But yeah, you got knocked out early. Hopefully you weren't bored. That's the only problem with that thing is it's, you know, you're kind of hanging around, and if you're not doing anything, I could see that being kind of boring. But hopefully that wasn't the case for you. But the big battle nonsense with, okay, leave the room. All right, let's talk about strategy. All that bullshit just takes up time that you could just be rolling crazy stuff. Letting crazy things, let the dice do what the dice like to do. All right, now we'll bring a little bit of white into the mix. I needed to make sure that I got these guys done tonight. Because if not, we're kind of going in the opposite direction. And of course, I'm not going to be there next Monday. We're going out of town for the weekend. And I won't be there. So, no painting on the weekend, no filming on Monday. That's why you'll see that we'll put out a couple of videos. We'll do a couple of weeks where we play multiple times a week. You got to make hay while the sun still shines, you know? You got an opportunity to do more than one thing this week, you do it, because there might be some weeks where you can't. All right, let's see how consistent this looks. That's about right. All right, let's lighten up the red, and we're going to use this yellow to brighten it up. If I remember correctly, is this scarlet still alive? Let's see. No, it was enjoyable. I didn't know I'd be out after losing 4 stands. Regardless, it was a great evening. Yep. Is that the elephant army you're building? Are you building a classical Indian army for your elephant army? Or are you Or are you doing a different one? I don't want to pick these things up 3 freaking times. We'll just lighten it here. I think after that, we did add a little bit of white. That's going to be pretty close. That's the problem with doing a test bed one. That you do the test bed and then you got to get them to match the other ones. The alternative is just not to even do a test bed, and hopefully you don't screw it up and have to redo them all. So 6 of one, half dozen of the other. This one here. All right, let's compare these two. Now, you know what we're going to do? Make them look closer. Okay, let's go ahead and do the center boss in the metallic color, so that'll even all of them out. Greco-Bactrian, okay. The A list has 1 elephant and the B list 2. We only take a few more elements to be classical Indian. Hold on 1 second. All right. Greco-Bactrian. I should do Greco-Indian just so I don't have a knight general that gets himself into trouble. Although my knight general dying the other night didn't lose me the game, because I'd lost 4 elements anyways. But I knew that was going to happen. I knew he was going to go charging up towards the freaking camp and he was hosed when that happened. But that's what it is. That happens all the time. I swear, every time we play, we encounter stuff we've never seen before. And I played over 2,000 games. You'd think you'd see everything. Nope. There's always something else. It's always something new. Always something new. Well, I'm not sure what your gaming group was like, Randy, from where you used to not live in Florida, but I'm going to say that they don't have as much fun as we do. And you got to play with Luke, who has been very elusive as of late. All right, I believe we mixed our own gray. So that's where we're going to go next. And then we're going to roll right into the Bowman. We're going to go ahead and go right into the Bowman. We need to knock these. We need to knock this stand out quick. Okay, this is the one that's complete. Yeah, I stayed up way too late last night, but that's all right. The people kept me up. So hopefully I don't know how long I'm going to be on here. Because if I get tired or bored or something, then I'm going to have to sign off and won't really get what I wanted to get accomplished. afraid I'm going to have to make some coffee because I am fading. I am fading. Be right back. And I'm not going to sleep at freaking 7 o'clock. The 8 bow with its +1 against foot makes it a decent element. Remembering the first loss counts as 2 losses. Wow, Beast Air. I think you're doing voice to text and it's not working really well. Or you invented some new language. Decent element. A regular bow's a decent element. I think they look cool. The thing is the front, you should never use that +1. If you have to use the +1, then other people aren't really doing their job. These guys shouldn't be fighting in close combat. It kind of reminds me of a friend of mine who was who went to Iraq, and he got changed the position that he was going to do when he went over there. And this is at the very beginning of the invasion. He got changed doing something completely different, which was air defense. And my wife was asking me, well, what do you think he's doing right now? I said, he's doing everything except what he trained to do, because if you're an army unit and your air defense stuff and you're doing air defense, that means the Air Force didn't do their job. It's kind of like bows shouldn't be fighting in close combat. If they're fighting in close combat, then they got through. The heavy foot didn't stop them. So, they look cool. Honestly, the fact that they can't defend any better against other bow fire is just stupid. And they are just way too brittle to get blown away by artillery. So, but they do look cool. And I've got a couple of them in my Burgundian army, and I spend the entire game playing keep away with them. Try not to lose by getting one of those guys killed. I think the first one counting as 2 kills is a little stiff when you only lose 4 elements. If you lost like 6 elements and the first one cost 2, it might be a little bit better, but it's not a big incentive for me to choose to use those elements. I would rather not use them if given a chance. The only one I don't mind so much is a Deep Night General, because it's like, well, just throw him in, and if you lose, you lose. It's 3 elements. It's 1 for the element, 1 because it's double, and 1 for it's the general, so it's worth 3. But at least he's 1 higher because he's the general on everything. But it's a way to model something different, But if we're trying to win, If that's what your objective is, then I wouldn't take any of these elements. I just think it's too damning to count the first one as an extra one. When you don't get you don't get really a bonus. You get like for instance, a knight general, a deep knight general gets an extra +1 against foot, right? Well, that's what they're supposed to do. Knights are supposed to go after foot and crush them. So it gets a +1 against an element it's supposed to be fighting, right? These guys get a +1 against foot. So they get a +1 against units they shouldn't be fighting. So it's a little different. But with that said, I'm not opposed to building these units because they look cool. I'm just saying, if I made my set of rules, it wouldn't cost like an extra element. Why are you not hearing anything? I have no idea. The microphone's on. How about I'll turn it off, back on again. It's green. The mixer's going. Do you have your fingers in your ears? We don't need technical difficulties tonight. You can't hear Tony talk. I don't know. Everybody else can hear fine, can't they? Can you hear me now? All right. What if the sound of the fan comes through? I bet it does. Got to keep the fans a moving, that's for sure. Yep, loud and clear. Yeah, I'm loud. I remember when I was in school, grade school, and you had to give a presentation in front of the class, and there'd always be people that would be like really embarrassed, and they figured if they talked really low, it wouldn't be as embarrassing. Yeah, my name's Ralph, and I want to talk about freaking enunciate. It's easy to stand in front of people and talk about stuff if you know what you're talking about. If you don't know what you're talking about, yeah, it's an impossible task. But you probably shouldn't be giving a presentation on something you don't know what you're talking about. You rebooted and now you can hear them. It was that Pornhub messed everything up when you were on it. That's what I hear happens. All right. I had a shitload to do on these guys. And like I like to say is I'll either get them done or I won't. I would like to get them done because, I've got 29 hours that I've got to be basically in a car. And I could use that time to brainstorm and figure out exactly what I'm going to work on next. So that's really the reason. Not I'm in a hurry to play these guys. You know, I'll spend hundreds of hours painting an army and not really that excited to play them. I'm tired of looking at them. That might be a little counterintuitive, but it's the truth. It's the God honest truth. So I was on the fence of whether or not I was going to have these spearmen in the back or in the front. In other words, make this unit look like it was like the stands were firing. Or make them look like they were standing, you know. Make them look like the bowmen are in front shooting, or make it look like the spearmen in front. I think I'm going to put the spearmen in the front because the other stands I didn't do them because the guys in the front actually did not have any shields. So it didn't make any sense to protect them with just their body. But these guys, since they have shields, we're going to put them. We're going to put them in the front. New person. John Hanna, what's my next project? I don't know. I'm thinking successors. I'm thinking of taking my Ptolemaic and making them 3.0 compatible, which involves, I think, painting 3 stands. And see where it takes me from there. Can't do pre-feudal Scots yet. The QRF company's not back online yet. And I want to buy some stuff from them to make some of the units seem more interesting than the figures I currently have. That's what I'm thinking the next project's going to be. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to get on tonight to stay on tonight because I'm fading fast. Even without coffee. All right. 7 viewers, welcome. Welcome, welcome. All right, we got to do beards on these guys, but let's just set them off to the side. Figure out what color we're going to do these bowmen in. I think I'm going to do them the same as I'm going to do them the same way as the spearmen are. That is blue pants, brown shoes, red shirt. But this red is not the same red. There must be this other one that's up here. Flat red. Alex Mack, welcome. Finally finished my 6mm Nicophorians this afternoon. Happy having done my first army. It's fully based. You got some other 6mm troops to make an enemy for him? Nicophorians. Yeah. It's funny, two of the generals of that time period that were really successful is a guy named Nicephorus and Basil. But both the Nicephorus and the Basil are both the second. So if you're listening to, say, like an audiobook, and you're starting to get into like the 800s or something like that, you're like, all right, the guys that are going to push back and going on campaign are coming up soon. And both of the guys that come up are not the seconds. They're both the first. So the first Nicephorus was not as successful like the second one. And the second one's nephew ends up murdering his uncle, John Lysimicus. And both of those guys were actually back-to-back really successful guys that, they had been encroached. The empire had been encroached, and they fought their way to expand, both of those guys. Not a historical opponent, unfortunately, but I have some War of the Roses, Inca and Vikings. Yeah, don't do Inca. Inca would not go well against them. The Inca would just get hosed. Yeah. Okay, blue pants. What kind of blue pants do we have over here? All right, it was this one. All right, we still have it out here. All right, and the red is this one, I think. If it's not exact, it doesn't matter that much. I can bend it. I can bend it to my will. I am super groggy, though. Super, super groggy. Thought I had like a big meal or something like that, but so his shirt's going to be red. A little bit of the pants, a little bit of the pants that are showing is blue. All these guys have long hair and beards. So they're Byzantine bikers. This is why my preferred painting time is in the morning, because I'm less likely to be groggy. I can't see that. I can't see that. You had an Aztec army years ago. The Jaguar warriors and Eagle warriors were a pain to paint. I've seen those figures and it makes me want to paint them. Man, I keep taking breaks, folks, here, but I'm like going on this downward spiral of falling asleep. So I'm either going to have to wake up or I'm going to have to go to sleep super early. Let's try a little bit more coffee. Okay, I got some reinforcements coming as far as waking up. Let's see what we got here. And then I've got a little picture I'm gonna show you guys. We'll put there in the corner. We'll play a little game. So much more uniform look painter than a random look painter. So the ink are going to be a learning moment for me. You're back. You had to step away for a moment. Good point about should not be using 8 bow in close combat. Yep. Yeah, if they're in close combat, somebody didn't do their job. Now there's exceptions to the rule. Like if you're using like early Achaemenid Persians, you don't have a choice. Those guys are your heavy foot. You've got like 5 or 6 of them in that army, and they've got to stand toe to toe, and fight them off. And actually, the last time I faced those guys, when the Athenians got crushed. They got triple combined on them, and they were doing a bunch of 2-to-2 shots against them, and they just really blew them away. So let me open up another window here, and I'm going to share a picture with you guys, and we're going to play a little game. I just put this, just today, I put this picture on my Facebook page. I know some of you guys are on Facebook, and some of you guys are not. I think Facebook is excellent for our hobby. I don't get into arguments with people on Facebook. That's just a waste of time, a waste of my time. All right, we're going to save as. Can we save this as a PNG? No, we cannot. Okay. All right, and then we're going to open up this little thing here, and let's see, I believe we've got this one right. All right, so let's, how did I edit this thing? I was able to do it easily. Oh, okay. Double click on it. All right. So we're going to change this little. We're going to change this little picture to the one I just saved to my computer. It's supposed to be right here. There it is. Let's make it big. Now this is a picture I had that I made the award for. Let's put it up here in the corner so you can still see what I'm doing. Did an event called the Greatest General. What the event called the Greatest General is, there is a list that is in DBMM. There's a couple things that you can buy in DBMM. And one of the things you can buy is a brilliant or an inert general. Okay, an inert general is not something you want. I think you get like a discount or whatever if you take them, and they affect how many pips you have or you know, different things you can do. So there's an event that I ran called the Greatest General. So this list that Phil Barker put together of all the brilliant generals. I found somebody had uploaded an older version of DBMM, like the 2007 version, and there's a list in the back of it that lists all the brilliant generals. There's about 60 or 70 of them or something like that. So the way that event is you play an army like you normally would, but you're actually playing a certain guy. So you're either playing Hannibal or Alexander, or, you know, people that aren't as well known. And you know, there's the special rules to it is that you get a poker chip, and that is a reroll on whenever you want. You have one reroll per game, and you can choose when to use it in. And it's just kind of a little wrinkle or whatever. So, you know, some armies have multiple generals that can be greatest general. Most armies don't have one. And then most of the generals are just one per army. So, you know, you might have like the Achaean League has Philopoemen as one of the generals, and that's it. The whole time period they don't have anybody else. But anyhow, so this little picture that's there, I don't think I can bind it. I think I found it with all those people on there. I could be wrong. I guess that happens when you. That's going to happen to me more and more often. I'm going to forget. I ran the event a while ago. When was it? It was actually one that I won. Amazingly enough, in 2019. I don't even remember who I used. But anyhow, so you had to play a guy, you know. So once you signed up, hey, I'm going to play Scipio Africanus. There's that army in particular, the Polybian Rome. They actually have two guys you could play. So you, if somebody's already playing Scipio, you got to play Claudius Nero. And I didn't make the list. And there's people that are obviously people recognize as greatest generals. That people like would agree, like Julius Caesar and stuff like that. And then there's people that are on there that just you're wondering why Phil Barker put him on the list. Hey, I didn't make the list. So anyways, so here's a list of generals. I figured we would go through and decipher who these guys are. I know right off the bat easily who half of them are. Left to right, top row, no idea who he is. No idea who's in the upper left-hand corner there. And I guess I could probably do a Google image search on that, and it would tell me who that is. No idea who the first guy at the top left is. Anybody have a clue who that is? Looks like some Roman guy. Looks like a Roman guy that would be a king because he's got a diadem or something like that on him. No idea who that guy is. Second guy in on the top row, it's pretty obvious who that guy is. My favorite successor, even though he's not a successor. I don't know if I'd like him so much if there wasn't a cool statue of him. And I'm wondering how close to the likeness those statues are, because whoever did the statues, I mean, that's an artist. I'm just a moron that does paint by numbers, as far as I'm concerned. Same thing for Art de la Guerre. You get ordinary, competent, brilliant, and strategist. And they have a list of folks on there. Yeah, I was going to try Art de la Guerre, but I felt dirty playing it. There's so many things that are just totally lifted from Phil Barker's stuff. It just seems wrong. It seems wrong to do it and then not give Phil Barker any of the money or any of the credit, when obviously it's inspired by other things. But, you got to play with people in your area. If everybody wanted to play Art de la Guerre here, then we'd be playing that. I think in that one, skirmishers can shoot at a distance, so that's good. But that's a step in the right direction, let's put it that way. So we got Pyrrhus, number 2, top row, second one in, old Pyrrhus. Number 3, of course, is Julius Caesar. No idea who number 4 is. No idea. Some Greek or Roman. No idea who the 4th one, left to right on the top. Upper right is the statue, and I say this because there's a couple of statues that we consistently have been attributed to certain people, and they have changed hands who they may actually represent. I believe this one has not changed yet, because this is supposed to represent Sulla. You can also get unreliable with allied generals who could turn on your other commands if you're losing. Cool. Ooh. So Sulla is top right. Middle left is the statue attributed to Marius, the nemesis of Sulla. Second in the middle, of course, it's Hannibal. Who else would it be? Hannibal before he lost his eye. He didn't lose his eye. Before his eye went blind. I don't think he lost his eye. He lost vision out of it. And he didn't want to spook people, I guess. If you got an eye that's just like weird looking, you want to cover it or people will lose their appetite when they're eating around you. Smack in the middle, who everybody thinks is the greatest general, Alexander the Great. I'm not so sure about that. I'm not saying he sucks by any stretch of the imagination. Who apparently I've found out recently meaning in the last month or so, that he had all kinds of stuff I wasn't aware of. I didn't know that he had one eye of one color and one of another. I didn't know that he had a neck issue, apparently. He had something where his neck was twisted one way. Which would explain why he's always on the right-hand side. I think he had a twist to the left, which would make sense if he's always on the right-hand side of the battlefield. You know, that way he's aiming that way. The fourth one in the middle from the left is Scipio Africanus. An older Scipio Africanus. I would imagine the one at the extreme end on the right was got to be what is it, Tutmosis? I think that's who it is. I said, I don't remember if I grabbed this from something or I created it. If I created it, that's who I would have put there because he's the only Egyptian on the list. But if I grabbed it, how would I not know who the hell's at the top left? I do not know who that is. Just like I do not know who's at the bottom right, bottom row of the left. I have no idea who that is. Some Greek, probably. Just like the second bottom row, second from the left, has got to be a Persian. It's got to be somebody like Cyrus or something like that. I don't think he's Assyrian. I think he's Persian. I think the little hat gives it away. Bottom row in the middle, got to be some Greek dude. Who it is, I don't know. Bottom row, fourth from the left. It's got to be a Babylonian or Assyrian. That long beard gives it away. And then the bottom right-hand corner one's interesting. I'm pretty sure that's Trajan. Okay, but it's kind of hard to say because one of the distinguishing things about Trajan is his hair. One distinguishing thing about statues of Trajan is the hair. It pretty much makes him look unlike anybody else. And, but there's a lot of shadow in there. I've never seen a statue of Trajan with that much shadow in it. And it's funny because it actually, the bottom right looks a lot like Kieran Hines as Julius Caesar. Much more than Julius Caesar. The French army were heavily influenced by their generals when Joan went forward with her religious banner and the French army would eagerly follow. Yeah. Yeah, she's one of those things. That's just really sad. Her story's really sad. You know, that's like, having somebody like El Cid and then, burning him at the stake. That's like, it's one thing if Joan of Arc got captured by the English and the English burned her, right? But she got burned by her own people. That's not cool, man. Doesn't matter what you think about her. Ungrateful bastards. send a woman to do a man's job, and she kicks ass, and she gets rewarded by being burned at the stake. Not cool. Not cool, Frenchies. I have the French army after that, after Joan of Arc. So I guess it would be the last one for the 100 Years' War. I didn't get them specifically because, I got them because they had 2 artillery pieces. That and they're an enemy of my Burgundians and stuff like that. But get killed by your own ungrateful people. Not cool. All right. I'm wondering if this is the right red. I'd like for it to be the same shade. Let's tinker with it. I'm thinking this is the one that I used. Could just go back and watch one of my videos. Yeah, it's going to be close enough. It's going to be close enough. Bottom middle is Philip. Is it? Okay. Right under his son, huh? Wasn't he missing an eye, though? Notice I didn't ask you which Philip. It's kind of, He was an earlier one of them. You mean the guy that put the army together that kicked ass for his son? It's funny because there's a couple books that I've read on Alexander. One in particular was a lecture. It was like a 28-hour lecture, and that makes it sound like it's really boring, but it wasn't. This guy's particularly good, and I learned a lot about him. But what I've learned in the last month, by indirectly, meaning it's not even a book about Alexander. I've been reading about his successors, so indirectly found out about Alexander, all kinds of stuff that I had no idea about him. And I don't know, the more I read about him, the less I like him. I'm wearing a shirt with him on it. I think this is a cool shirt. This was 2008 Historicon theme, and it was Wars of Conquest and Those That Lead Them. And if had it not been an ancient general, I wouldn't have gotten the shirt. But all right, let's lose this, because it's kind of blocking what we're doing here. Or, you know what? Let's make it smaller. There we go. Yeah, the more I read about Alexander, the less I like him. And let me paraphrase that. I still don't think it affects any of his military ability. Just, like him as a dude. So... But, like I've said before, all the leaders of all these countries we play in these games, they're all assholes. Every single one of them. To varying degrees, They didn't get there being nice folks. Even Belisarius, which is, better than most, still ended up murdering a bunch of people in the riots. I don't think this is the right red. I don't think this is the right red. I better be careful. I don't want to have to. I don't think this is the right red. All right. I've woken up a little bit, so. Philip, huh? So who's top left? I don't know where the hell I got that from. I obviously didn't put it together. I saw there was enough folks on there. I'm like, it's gonna work for the greatest general theme on there. But you know, that list, I bet the list that's in Art de la Guerre is lifted from DBMM. And you know how you know? Is John Lackland on that list? Because nobody in their right mind, other than Phil Barker, would put John Lackland as a list of a brilliant general. You know, he did some one brilliant thing in some battle that nobody's ever heard of. But he's one of the least impressive British monarchs of all time. Consistently. I mean, Edward the son of whatchamacallit, Longshank's son is worse than John Lackland, but yeah. Who else during the DBA time period or the Art de la Guerre time period that was a British monarch was worse than John Lackland, other than the son of Longshanks? Who else sucked? Who else was a moron? I can't think of anybody. So they have an inert list too. So we're gonna do one of those one time. We're gonna do a series on inert generals, and we'll come up with something creative, you know. But it's just different ways of playing the same game and, you know, getting enjoyment out of it. Yeah, I have no idea who that top left guy is. No idea. And who's the bottom left? That's got to be somebody like, it's got to be like Themistocles or some Greek guy. You know, he's got curly hair and a beard. So he's almost guaranteed to be a Greek guy. Oh, shit. I'm glad I saw that. I'm running without power on. What did my power get down to? Let's see. 19%. Oops. Yeah. Don't, you know, I have a laptop. It's a laptop, but I don't ever operate it without it being running. Without it being plugged in. Hangnails driving me bananas. Gotta take care of it. I'm gonna pick it till it's gone. All right. Is that it? Yeah, I have no idea who that guy is. Anyways, it was pretty close. I guess I never made it. I couldn't remember if I put it together. I probably wouldn't have made it because there's no way I would have been able to find all those pictures with a black background and put them next to each other. The back background would have been a deal breaker. You know, because they're all kind of like in the shadows like that popped out. So that's the little logo that we use for the greatest general. So. All right, back to this red. Let me bring it all the way up in a couple places and verify that it is in fact not the correct red. Yeah, it might be actually. I don't think it is. I guess I shouldn't start painting this early. I've had too many challenges. Let's do this one. It's got to be this one. Bottom left is Hannibal. So he's on there twice. Because Hannibal's definitely in the middle. He's to the left of Alexander, or on Alexander's right. That's a really cool statue of him, by the way. I don't remember where that one is, but that's really an iconic statue of him. Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know where I got the. I bet I could find it. And it would describe in there who's who. All right, let's try this red. Richard the Lion was a moron. He left England under John's control. Yes, that was a bad move. He was really bad politically. But he was okay on the battlefield, and at least he was bold. But yeah, he wasn't a good administrator. And he wasn't on the throne very long. I mean, he was on the throne, what, like 10 years or something like that? And most of the time, he wasn't in England. Because he had that fortress that was in Normandy, whose name escapes me. But people know who he is. And people know who he is. Is he on that list? I think he is on that list. Lionheart? I'm pretty sure he's on the list. Oh. What other monarch of England was worse than Longshank's son? You know, during this time period. Let's try this with black and see where this gets us. Because this might be the correct color. I've woken up a little bit. That's the important thing. These little... It's funny because this issue I'm having right now, trying to identify the red, never happens to me. And I don't know how it never happens to me, but I just have multiple reds out here, and usually it isn't what it is. You've seen the top left used to depict Attila. Really? Well, I'm not going to argue with you. It very well could be, but that just does not look like a Hun to me at all. It looks like, who's the freaking last king of Rome? Tarquinius. That's what it looks like to me. Because it definitely looks like he's got a crown. It's got some kind of a diadem or something. So it's definitely a king of something. I just don't know who it is. I just don't know. Was that the last king of Rome? Somewhere in there, towards the end. Yeah, but those sculptors, man. Can you imagine just doing those? I mean, you have, first of all, no air conditioning. And just primitive tools by today's 3D printing standard. I mean, it's freaking amazing. It's amazing what those folks did. It's absolutely amazing what those sculptors did. It just proves how much you can get done if you're not sitting around watching TikTok videos all day long. Not that I do that. I encounter them only because they're posted in other places. So yeah, the book I'm reading right now, or I'm listening to right now, the second book on the successors. Let me think what it's called. Ghost on the Throne or something like that. It's actually really good. It's actually really good. The narrator isn't awesome. And I think it's actually a narrator I've heard before that I don't like. But the material is really, really good. And they haven't even gotten into, I mean, you know, Alexander is still warm. Okay, he just basically just passed away at this point. And this is all stuff I know before. I'm just getting different aspects of the details and stuff. And it talks about the really interesting thing is the plans that Perdiccas found. What Alexander was planning on doing was, going after Arabia and then going after Carthage, and he was going to build a fleet of ships larger than triremes and go after Sicily, Iberia. And that'd be an interesting little campaign to do a series of battles, Alexander goes west, right? He doesn't die, so he's got to fight Cyrene, Carthage, the Iberians, and Rome. Might be interesting. What if? Historical what ifs. We used to do that all the time in our World War II naval gaming, all the time. Since there's limited battles that actually happen, we're like, well, these forces almost bumped into each other, and had they bumped into each other, this is kind of the scenario that would have happened. So just do the same thing with, ancient stuff. All right, now how are we looking? Is this probably the color? Probably. All right. If not, it's going to be close enough. F it. I don't think the other one that's more orange is scarlet, and I know it's not scarlet because I saved scarlet for the shield on purpose. Second from the right bottom looks like he's Babylonian or Assyrian. Yeah, one of those two for sure. The giveaway is the shape of the beard and the little hat. I could just take that image and just put it on the Google Lens and probably find the original one, and the original one is going to say who everybody is. So my money is that's Cyrus. Is second from the left at the bottom. And who knows whether that guy is Nebuchadnezzar or something like that. Oh, I don't think he's on the greatest general list, but I don't think I put those guys together. There's probably, pulled off of somewhere. All right. Nordic, there you are. Hey, look at that picture. Your hero's there in the middle. If you just signed on, I'm finding out all kinds of stuff about Alexander recently that I'm not even reading about him, just in peripheral stuff, and I'm not liking him very much. I'm not saying he's not a good commander, just I don't know if I'd want to serve under him. But Alexander goes west. That would be interesting. Maybe we'll do that sometime in the future. We can fight the Carthaginians and Cyrene, the Iberians. I'd say Gauls, but damn Gauls wouldn't have a chance. They wouldn't even have a chance. It wouldn't even be close. So I think when I'm done with this book, I may have an idea who my favorite successor is. You know, that's not Pyrrhus. You know, some guys, two guys in particular, that could have been really successful, I think. But they just didn't live long enough. Could have been, because you never know. I mean, sometimes some of these guys that are really good make some really bad decisions, and they just, you know, and they get backstabbed or poisoned at the wrong time. Right where he should be, surrounded by men that all paled in comparison to him. Oh, man. There's two guys in particular that I think that could have been really successful if they didn't die really prematurely. And that's Leonitus, sorry. Leonitus and Craterus. And Leonitus is a guy that was one of Alexander's bodyguards. And people that didn't know Alexander would mistake him for Alexander because he was considered a taller, better-looking Alexander. And after Alexander died, he started carrying himself and had mannerisms like Alexander. But he ended up dying in the uprising called the Lamian War, just within a couple years of Alexander dying. So he never went anywhere, but he was particularly popular, and he had a lot of Alexander-type mannerisms that he just kind of started carrying himself that way. The other guy that could have been really successful would have been Craterus. And Craterus was highly respected by the army. And he was on his way marching towards Greece because his army had been disbanded. And but he's one of those guys that was not in favor of Alexander being influenced by the Persians. So he was a conservative guy. So I'm thinking that's probably, I don't need to read more about him. I'm thinking that's the guy I'm liking. You know, because I mean, if I, you know, I don't think they should, I think Alexander went too far with trying to, I'm fine with including people in your army. I think the Romans were really good at that. The Romans were really good at, like, you know, you guys, you know, conquer people, and, like, you know, you guys were a pain in the ass to conquer, but now that we've conquered you, why don't you join our army and we'll kick ass together. But the Romans didn't all of a sudden encounter the Gauls and say, hey, let's make our civilization more Gaul-y. So I'm more of that kind of mentality. Well, at the time he would have gone west, but in mostly hoplite armies, then Macedonian phalanx beats them every time. Well, assuming numbers are equal, yes, absolutely. Rome had not switched to the manipular system yet, so they would have fared not that well. They would have fared like the Greeks. They would be like Greeks that were more stubborn, because the Romans are stubborn as hell. And sometimes that's not a good thing. Egyptian guy's probably Ramses the Third, who had ginger hair, unusual for an Egyptian. Could be Celts who faced first. Would be interesting, but likely no victory for the Celts. Just a question, Tony. Is there a right time and place to be backstabbed? Never. You know, your people don't need to kill you. That's your enemy's job. There's not a right place to be backstabbed. So anyway, Craterus, he doesn't survive very long either, because he gets into a battle and that he's not supposed to die in, and he dies. Oops. Against Eumenes. And they really didn't dislike each other. It just kind of played out that way. So yeah. Now, talking about some guys that you can't understand why they would be brilliant. One of the successor generals that is considered a brilliant general by Phil Barker is a guy named Lysimicus. And Lysimicus was, I don't know that he was brilliant. I think he was brilliant politically. I don't know about on the battlefield, because there was some of the battles that he didn't even fight at. He was busy trying to deal with Thrace, and he was really good at making alliances that really worked for him, and he was in power for a really long time. So maybe that's included in part of his, why he's brilliant, why Phil Barker considers he's brilliant. But of the successor generals, again, we're not going to count Pyrrhus, because he's, I'm talking about the guys that had a part of, that were around when Alexander was around. The only ones that are considered brilliant generals, according to Phil Barker, is, and he kind of puts into question like what the criteria for some of these guys is Eumenes. Okay, Eumenes is one of them. Eumenes of Cardia, Lysimachus, Antiochus III, which is funny because he got beaten by the Romans. He did some other stuff, but I mean, he beat the Celts. Demetrius, One-Eye's son, which is strange because Demetrius is really similar to Pyrrhus, but even more so because he was all over the place and just didn't accomplish stuff. He was like really badass tactically on the battlefield, but he was constantly being distracted, going one way or the other. And he was running around with the odds against him for a long time. But Phil Barker decides that he's brilliant. And I think that's it. None of the Greco-Indians or the Greco-Bactrians, or there's no Ptolemaic general that is considered brilliant by Phil Barker. I think that's it. So, second from the left is Cyrus the Great. That's what I would think. I think the Egyptian is Ramses the Third. You sure it's not Thutmosis? Roman army that period was at most 10,000, so it would not have fared well numbers-wise. Well, I want to do some historical battles with special rules for the successor period. And one of the things that's really common is these guys didn't fight to the death. Like their troops didn't fight to the death. So they could be, switching sides in the middle of a battle and shit like that, which, is really cool if you're playing that battle, because it could happen, because it did happen. Eumenes' troops switched sides on him and frickin', and handed him over to the opponent, So there's a lot of backstabby stuff that could happen. backstabby stuff. Let's just invent words while we're at it. Hey, I do it all the time. Julius Caesar's right. Oh yeah, we've been through that. So the only guy I can't figure out is upper left, which you weren't on here yet when I was talking about it. That sure seems like that first king of Rome or something like that. He definitely has some kind of diadem on there, and he's definitely Roman looking. So we don't know who he is. I have no idea who the third guy from the fourth guy from the left on the top row. It's almost like a figure of Seleucus. There's a statue of Seleucus that is really dark, and maybe that's him. Sulla, of course, is all the way on the right, or the statue currently attributed to Sulla, because those things change. Marius left in the middle, Hannibal, Alexander, Scipio Africanus, the Egyptian pharaoh who shall not be named. Don't know who bottom left is. I'm with you on Cyrus, second from the left at the bottom. Someone mentioned Philip in the middle of the bottom there. I've never seen a statue of Philip. I'm not going to argue with him, probably. Trajan definitely on the bottom right. Phil Barker is a big fan of Mago. Which one? Mago that ran those goddamn Numidians. I hate the frickin' Numidians. They're like my nemesis. You know what, though? They faced the Irish, and the Irish crushed them. So I'll take my Irish, making the world Ireland. Didn't know that. Big fan of Mago, huh? Hannibal won a lot of battles because of the Numidian cavalry. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it. No. Pyrrhus is second from the left, top one. Just to the left of Julius Caesar. I just don't know who that top, the third one. I bet, you know what? Let's rest this. Let me go and find this picture, which is now on my computer somewhere. And I should be able to do a Google Lens on it if I don't have a handicap moment. Come on. Should be able to right click, I think. I don't know where it is. Maybe I can do it off the phone. I can't do it here. I use the phone and the computer like equally, and sometimes you do one thing and can't do something else. Add to favorites, edit, create. No, I don't need to do any of that stuff. See all photos. What am I inside of? Maybe I don't need to be inside of this. Should be an open with. Here we go. Open with 3D Paint, more apps. Okay, let me do this. This is why I don't get anything done. Hey, I'm okay. I'm not falling asleep. Image search. Okay, and I'm going to upload an image. Aha, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take this image we just created and we're going to upload it, and I'll find out where the hell I got it from. Okay, this was from somebody that had it on a blog, 25 greatest commanders of the ancient world. All right, let's see if he's got... oh, it's not going to tell me who these guys are? Aurelian. Aurelian is the top left one. Somebody mentioned, I forget who it was, that was, hey, check out Aurelian. Yep. Aurelian is one on there. Okay, the guy on the bottom left is Septimus Severus. Septimus Severus. I gotta admit, I'm not familiar with him. I mean, obviously I've heard who he is, but that's not... Okay, the Egyptian dude is Thutmose III, Egypt's greatest pharaoh. Egypt's greatest warrior pharaoh. He campaigned further than any Egyptian leader before or after. He was known for his bold and aggressive strategic approach. His lightning marches gained him the initiative from his numerically superior enemies, and he used mobility, combined arms, and bold action to overcome all enemies. He practiced blitzkrieg 33 centuries before Guderian. Not my words. Okay, and the guy I didn't know that looked like Seleucus is Seleucus. Okay, Seleucus Nicator. So this is the original Seleucus here. Age of Giants, Seleucus served in Alexander's campaign, rising to high command. He was arguably the most successful of the so-called Diadochi. Hold on one second. Okay, now we got some zombie coffee. Oh yeah, we'll wake the hell up now. Seleucus Nicator. According to this person, he's arguably the most successful of the so-called Diadochi. Too bad he got murdered. He arguably was the most he fought but eventually came to agreement with Chandragupta Maurya, the great Indian leader, giving up the Punjab in return for 500 war elephants. With these, he helped defeat Antigonus One-Eye, the Battle of Ipsus, the greatest battle of the successor wars. He ended up with the largest portion of the former Persian Empire. Well, that's without a doubt. Before defeating another rival, Diadoch, Lysimicus, the Battle of Corupedion, at the age of 79, which Lysimachus dies at that battle, and then shortly thereafter, Seleucus gets murdered. So, yeah. Who else were we missing that we didn't know who it was? The Assyrian guy on the bottom row is Tilgath-Pileser III. 8th century BC, he established the world's first modern professional army, a combined arms force armed with the most technologically advanced weapons of the age. He campaigned throughout his reign on all frontiers, expanding the Assyrian Empire in all directions. He put the ass in Assyrian. No, that's my words. He assured Assyria's continued dominance in the Middle East for the next century and a half. Yes, and all their neighbors hated them. Cyrus the Great was accurate. Pyrrhus, Philip II of Macedon. Yeah, so this person, just for yucks, rated Alexander the Great as #1, Hannibal Barca as 2, Scipio is 3. Actually, Hannibal Barca and Scipio 2 and 3 each. Julius Caesar 4, Philip of Macedon 5, Pyrrhus 6. You know, as much as I like Pyrrhus and as much as he interests me and he was aggressive on the battlefield, I don't know that if he was that great. Anyhow, inspirational, but and let's bring this back up. Da-da-da-da-da-da. I lied. Bottom left, Marcus Aurelius. Nope, Septimus Severus. Hannibal's brother Mago. Sargon II. Yeah, Sargon II, that was the guy that, he's like book 1, right? He's like 1-1. Oh, wait. Wasn't there an Akkadian guy named Sargon, right? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I gotta be careful. This lid's gonna pop. The man to the right of Alexander is my second favorite ancient general, Scipio Africanus. So, yeah, but he was mostly not Africanus. What's his original name? Oh, it's such a pain in the ass. It is. Why am I drawing a blank? Scipio Cornelius. I'm drawing a blank, and I shouldn't be drawing a blank. But anyways, he was the junior. Yeah. The thing with Scipio is he had a really well-oiled machine. But I'd say Alexander had a really well-oiled machine too. I would put Alexander over Scipio every time. I think the thing about Scipio is he was much better rounded than just about any other Roman. Because there's a lot of political things he had to do to get things done that Alexander would not have had to do, because it's just like, you freaking do it. I'm the guy in charge. And you know, you take some other guy who's like, take like a guy who I consider a badass Roman commander of the period, Marcellus. The Marcellus was just like, oh, the guys are there. Let's go there and beat the shit out of them. So he's a guy like Pyrrhus, who is, not a coward and definitely like lead from the front type of guy, but doesn't have the finesse that somebody like Scipio would have. So, Scipio is probably the most finesse Roman commander, I would say. Think outside the box kind of guy. And he was super freaking young too. And things worked out for him. He was inspirational and things worked out for him. So... Alexander got rid of a lot of guys that were really experienced. Not a lot of guys. He got rid of a few guys that for whatever reason, were, and that's the next book I'm reading. After I'm done with this one, there's one that's just about the veterans of Alexander's army during the successor period. So I'm gonna be reading about this kind of stuff. I think it's really fascinating, and I think that the fact that I don't have one guy that I really really like is actually great. Because it's really really interesting, and stuff can just drop from things are going really good for one guy, and then fate comes in and has other plans. Fate has other plans. But I think it's really, really interesting. But yeah, he started getting rid of. Alexander got rid of some guys that we're going to say they were too conservative for him. He's like, we need to Alexander wants to take on some Persian type things and take Eastern wives, and people prostrate in front of him. And it's like, yeah, we don't really like this, and people start causing too much of a ruckus, and they disappear. Parmenio and Cletus the Black and but even Alexander had problem in Afghanistan. That's just a place that give that place a wide berth. Scipio learned from everything he saw, and fortunately he saw the disasters the Roman army endured early on against Hannibal and learned how to beat him. Yeah, he was willing to think outside the box when a lot of Romans didn't think outside the box. So. And Hannibal had to think outside the box. To be successful with the Carthaginian army, you got to think outside the box, because you can't stand up and just go toe to toe with the Romans. They'll mow you over. It would be like if you fight Alexander, right? If you're some kind of Persian guy, or it doesn't really matter who you are, if you're going to fight Alexander, you can't go right at the phalanx. You're not going to win. You've got to do something else. So. You're not going to get through those guys. All right, let's just do all the reds. Did we get the right red finally? Yeah. All right, good. That's strange. That almost never I don't know. I can't recall that ever happening to me before. Oh well. I got a lot of stuff I got to do in the next month, or these guys aren't going to be battle ready. And I'm not really worried about the battle ready, because I'm not opposed to fudging things. I want to be looking forward to painting the next army. I want to be done with these guys by Historicon, so I could be, daydreaming about who's going to be next. Oh yeah, I got Alexander here for you. Oh, we can minimize these. We can make these guys smaller now, where I know who they are. Yeah, I knew I hadn't put that together. That would have been a pain in the ass. Try to find a bunch of pictures that were black on the background. The fact that Hannibal fell to his own tactics shows he's not that great a general. A great general will not fall for his own tactics. Well, I'm not counting Zama. Zama was like, he didn't want to go. He kind of had his hand twisted. He only had one eye. Come on, man. I'd like to see a matchup of Scipio versus Julius Caesar. I'm going to go with Scipio. I'm not a fan of Caesar. Not saying I would have been a better general than him. I'm just saying I'm just not a fan of him. It'd been nice if the Gauls left the record so we could see another side of the story and see exactly what happened. But, you know, people that are divided are always going to lose to somebody who's unified against them. You know, you have a bunch of tribe guys who are like, we got the Romans attacking our tribe over there. Ah, we don't like those guys anyways. They raided us last time. Well, and, you know, divide and conquer. Another guy that got backstabbed. I was reading, I came across YouTube, and there's that scene in Rome where Julius Caesar goes to Egypt, and the Egyptians are all like, hey, here's the head of Pompey, you know, basically to get in his favor. And he gets upset, and he was a consul of Rome. And I looked at some of the comments on that, and it was interesting because a lot of people seem to think that he was going to pardon him. Because they weren't bitter enemies their whole life. It wasn't like, I mean Sulla and Marius were much more bitter enemies than Caesar and Pompey were. And that's interesting to see if that's what would have happened. But I'm definitely affected by programming because I can't stand Octavian. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand it hit him in Rome. I couldn't stand him. And I mean the young Octavian, because the older one, when they switched actors and somebody else played him later, the older Octavian, if I remember correctly, was just kind of bland. But the earlier guy was just like it was like a Justin Bieber guy and just needed to be spanked. Somebody needed to spank him. Cyrus was a clever man using camels to thwart cavalry and using towers to power more firepower on enemy. And I think he was a good guy. I mean, I think he was a benevolent guy. I mean, as much as a guy could be. Sure, he conquered people and he made war, but I think he was pretty lenient. Didn't he capture Croesus and put Croesus in a role in his army? So he seems like he was a pretty benevolent guy. You actually do what Alexander wanted to do. You pin the phalanx and hit it from the side and the rear. Problem with a phalanx, it can really only move forward or backwards. The problem is getting troops capable of holding and not breaking in the front. Absolutely right. You got to hold them long enough to be able to get to the rear. Yeah. Do the naked guys. They don't take long to paint. I'd really like to do some blue. Anybody find any info on blue Gauls? I don't want to do ancient Brits, okay? I'm not British. And that's not the reason why. The reason why is I know multiple people who already have that army. You want me to do naked guys? I'm all for doing them. I mean, their jokes just write themselves. I saw somebody that did I want to say it was blue Gauls, but it was Gauls, blues. And I looked for it the other day and I couldn't find it. So was likely Caesar was going to pardon Pompey. Well, you know, if he pardoned him, he's a pretty nice guy to do that. I'm just going to say, you know, I would be a lot more ruthless than that. Yeah, well, Pompey married his daughter or something like that, right? So he shouldn't have been fighting to begin with. Influence of senators, it didn't stop when. Yeah, it's always the Congress, isn't it? Oh man. It's a good series. I need to watch it again. And they really should do more. That's really the way to do the series. They added a lot of historical stuff, and they just they added, you know, other characters that may or not have existed, and kind of built storylines around them that kind of tied everything together. So, you know, you add extra details, but you keep the stuff that we know about in there. I think that went really well. So. Now, I don't know anybody who's seen it that doesn't like it. It wasn't like, you know, Game of Thrones or anything, you know, where everybody got upset with the ending or some shit like that. All right, so who's the worst Roman emperor? I'm going with Caligula. Just on that movie alone, I'm going with Caligula. I don't care if his empire was like that. Just yep, Pompey married Julia. Yeah, yeah, I thought that was the case. I mean, it's a good move. That's a smart move to do stuff like that. All right, I need to take a pee break. I'll be right back. You guys can kick around who you think the worst Roman emperor is, and there's a lot to choose from. Pike are vulnerable to artillery, catapult, and bolt shooters. Would break their formations and leave them vulnerable. And if you play DBA, I think they're really vulnerable to bow fire. Concentrated bow fire. Artillery, yeah. I mean, artillery, but they've got to, the enemy has to have artillery. Not that many guys have artillery. Caligula. You're with me on Caligula, huh? So there's another book that I got. I like how I get sidetracked. It's better than falling freaking asleep. These are excellent books. If you can find them used. I got these really, really cheap. One of them's actually written in, unfortunately, so I'm going to get it again, but let's see if I can get it on the screen here. Chronicle of the Roman Emperors, and it's literally step by step, each person and what they did. And, I have a habit of buying books and never reading them, so I haven't read this. This thing was freaking $10. And, it's used. Bullshit. Nobody ever even looked through this thing. It's like brand new. Now, the Republic one, some heathen wrote in it. You don't write in frickin' books. That's like punching puppies. I thought I had some writing in it. Or highlighting or something. Oh, underlining. Frickin' Antichrist type shit. But it looks like Tarquinius flaws. It's just like the first part here. I would never do that. But how much was this one? $10. So what I'm planning on is they had multiple copies of this one, of the Emperor ones, but only one of the Republic. So I think I'm going to do is go back there again, and if I see it, sell this one back to them, and then get one without any highlighting. But it's not really a priority. I haven't looked through them because I haven't had to research anything. But yeah, there's lots of emperors that suck. Like, who's that guy? Pertinax. Pertinax is that guy that was in the Praetorian Guard, and he ends up taking some guy out. I don't remember who it was, but he basically pulled a Focus. Like Focus did that to Maurice later on. He basically he's like a guy that was like in charge of like the guard and everything, or and basically had him murdered and takes over. And of course, he only lasts like a year or a year and a half or something like that till he pisses everybody off. Some guy that has a lot of power, he happens to be at the right place at the right time, is able to get rid of the emperor, and he's like, all right, cool, let me do stuff, and then doesn't have a clue how to run a freaking, and just, all he is a thug that knows how to, command stuff in battle, sometimes. Nero is a close second. Everybody likes to pick him, but didn't he have to deal with that eruption? Didn't Vesuvius blow up on his watch? Caligula. I'm going with Caligula. All right, let's get more of this red on here. Oh well, I get sidetracked and shit, but hey, it's better than falling asleep. I mean, it's not even 8:30. This thing's behaving weird with the... Vespasian was emperor during the eruption. Okay. I'll take your word for it. He's the guy that ended up winning that civil war finally, right? And Titus was his son, if I remember correctly. Not exactly a period I plan on wargaming, so the details escape me. I think that's right. We got in about a month, we got a really long drives coming up where I'm not going to be driving most of the time. I could potentially not be driving any of the time, so I'm going to be bringing some books so we can learn about some shit. And I may bring that Emperor one. Although we're probably going to learn about some stuff that's useful for some historical battles coming up. So Mitch has got a new army that he's supposed to be receiving, and we are going to do some historical matchups with that army. I'm going to do some historical battles with that army. So, and it's an army we do not have. And it is an army that many people will probably not be interested in because it is the Far East. But it's an army that it's going to fit nicely with the other stuff that we have. Because a lot of people are like, oh, I don't care about stuff, Far Eastern armies. And, we like armies of all periods. So I won't say anything else because as soon as I do, something will happen and you won't be able to pick it up and have to explain why we're not doing what we were planning on doing. I'll say the same thing like I tell people at work. I've got a plan. And if I'm doing something different than the plan, then it was against my wishes that it happened. So, if I'm going to do a bunch of extra work planning and I have to not do what I planned, trust me, the first person that was pissed off about it was this guy. Because I had to do, all that extra work in vain. It's not like I get a thrill out of things changing. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of planning when I'm not at work. I got to do enough of it at work and not happy with the outcome most of the time because of all the variables and stuff that happen. And each one of these bowmen, I think, are different. Even these two guys are different. No, these are the same figure. Oh, and these are the same figure. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I thought all four of them were different. What do I know? Drink. So Nordic, did you know that your boy Alexander had apparently some kind of crick in his neck or something like that? He had like a funny neck thing going on. I didn't know that. I've learned a lot of stuff about him in the last month. Titus was Adidas' son. What is this new army? You want me to spill the beans? Not going to tell you. Not going to tell you what they are. Just, I don't want to curse it. It's an army we don't have. I don't want to curse it. But we're going to do... we're going to do some battles, and a lot of this stuff isn't known about the battles that we're done in, so we're definitely going to summon the Connor in it and have to take some of the liberties that he did with some of his Punic War scenarios as well, but maybe even more so in some respects. So that's and that could affect what I do next. I may end up painting an enemy of them instead. So we'll see. I do need to get the successors up to 3.0, because I basically haven't used that army at all. I haven't had a big interest in painting and using non 3.0 lists in any of my games. I'm not very interested in doing that. So the Ptolemaics have just, or as someone recently heard in a book, they call them the Ptolemaics. I'm telling you, I'm so fed up with these people not knowing how to pronounce normal things. The Ptolemaic dynasty. Anyhow, I haven't used them because they're short like 3 stands. So we'll see. But regardless, I want to be able to think about what the hell I'm doing on that long drive. So, what do you think you should start with your early Roman project? Etruscans, Romans, or both? Now, here's the question. When you build the Romans, who's going to fight them? Who do you want to fight your Romans? Do you want Carthage to fight them? Do you want them to fight Etruscans and Samnites and stuff like that? Because if you're going to fight Etruscans, if you and I think the Etruscan-Roman fight is a decent one. The only thing I don't like about the Etruscan-Roman matchup is both armies predominantly liked to use red. So rumors been going around he had a neck issue. I can sympathize. I suffered severe whiplash and complications from it. Well, I saw a couple of statues where he had his head leaning to the left, and it makes sense because I bet you it's one of the 3 kingdom armies. No, leaving that one for me. I wish it was. He had a thing where I think I read that it was to the left, and that would make sense because he was always to the right? So if you're always going to be on the right-hand side, it would make sense that you'd be looking towards the left. I don't know, but then I saw something else and it was to the right, so. So yeah, the guy that was pretending to be, was acting like Alexander, Leonitus. He started to mimic and have those type of mannerisms. I don't know whether he just picked them up just by spending a lot of time around him, or he wanted to just kind of have that continuity. But he didn't make it out of the Lamian War, and died early on. And pretty sure he died even before Perdiccas got murdered. I think. I'm not to that point yet in the book, but you take some guy like Seleucus, right? Seleucus ends up getting murdered, but he doesn't get murdered until freaking 281. So yeah, I mean he was around a long freaking time and was on the right side of a lot of things before that happened. So I mean he outlasted Lysimicus, so. Yeah, he was really successful. Back, my net went down. Good old unreliable British telecommunications. Etruscan leagues, Samnites, and Celts. Many Celtic people painted themselves a blue dye. Yes, but did Gauls that were in France, in modern day France, did any of those guys paint themselves completely blue? not tattooed, paint themselves completely blue. I was looking for that. I swear I've seen it. And if so, I will build a Gaul army, a fast warband. Okay, then you need to do early Romans. You need to do early Romans before... you need to do Camillan ones. I would do the Camillan Romans. And... which are basically... I don't think they have any blade. They're all spearmen. Oh, no, hold on a second. No, Camillan have 3 blade. The rest are spearmen. Let me look at them. Let's see how early the Camillans go. Oh. I don't have any problems, and I still don't. But for some reason, they always pop. Camillans, I want to say, is 210. That's the ones I'd do. I would do Camillan because it's 400 BC to 275 BC. So you get to fight Pyrrhus and, you know, consolidate their grip around the Samnites. Yeah, this list covers the Roman armies from the reforms of Camillus until the changes made after narrowly defeating the 280 BC invasion of Pyrrhus of Epirus in the aid of the Italian city-states. During this period, Rome had stubbornly mastered Italy. Stubbornly! We killed your whole army. Screw you, we're making another one. Her armies were still citizen levies, but were increasingly kept in the field for long periods and paid while in service. Cavalry fought with spears and small round shields. Each legion usually had shieldless levies skirmishing in front with javelins, followed by hastati with pila, sword, and scutum, then by principae with long spear, sword, and scutum, and finally by a reserve of veteran triarii, armed like the principes. Latin and Campanian allies were now identical to, and so included with Romans. Unassimilated Italian allies should be depicted as Oscans. So at least in DBA is cav general, another cav, 2 skirmishers, 2 blades, 2 spears that are principae, 2 spears of triarii, and 2 unassimilated Italian allies, which could be either solid auxiliary or fast auxiliary. That's a good army. That's a good army. You know, you have a core of 4 spear and 2 blade. That's can pretty much deal with anything. You're using Field of Glory. I bet it's almost exactly the same makeup. I mean, it's, you got to remember that you're not seeing any reference to Gauls and Blue Woad. Yeah, it could have been just somebody that just made shit up. I don't want to make shit up. I mean, I want to do things right if you want to. Tattoos would be a pain in the ass. I could do it, but man, it'd be a pain in the ass to do it. Seen reference, you can feel the glory of Lost Scrolls book, which has an army list. It's mostly Greek-inspired hoplites on both sides with javelins, little cavalry. Yep. Yeah. I played the Field of Glory computer game. There's a lot of things I like about it. I hate that it doesn't have a general element, though. And I don't like that it doesn't have a pip mechanism. Other than that, I think it's excellent. Weird. I'm drinking this strongest coffee known to man and still yawning. Oh well. Shit happens. It's an interesting army, but you know what? I think just about every army is interesting. I mean, it doesn't really narrow it down. There's maybe only 20 armies in the whole book that I'm like, I'm absolutely not building them ever. Pretty much everybody else is, Asterisk and his tribe were depicted with tattoos and drank plenty of all and ate sausages. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm going to say that predates me. Oh, plenty of ale and ate sausages. Okay. I'd like to do Visigoths too. I want to do a Fall of Rome type of armies with Huns and Franks and, I don't like Warband because I don't have any confidence in them. I feel Warband are kind of like elephants. Elephants are more useful than Warband. But it's the same thing. They have this element of chaos that you do not know. They make really good battles. They're really interesting in battles. I just don't want to be like, all right, everything hinges on the Warband doing their job. I just don't have a lot of confidence in them. But they do inspire crazy things to happen, and you get to you get to be loud and boisterous and stuff when you play them. So, there's a lot to like, Maybe a lot to like. But I really do enjoy building armies that people wouldn't give a second glance because of the figures or the troop composition, and then just get really excited about them. The army I'm doing right now is probably a poor example of that because it does have a smorgasbord of different things that make it interesting in and of itself. But I do like using the figures that nobody gives a second chance, or I think my Irish are an army that most people don't think of, or my Armenians. That was, I think, the 4th or 5th army I ever built. Really early on, and I've played them a lot, and they're a hoot. But they're not an army that people think of, So, what's the top army I will never build? Something like Maori. They're all like solid blade, and nobody makes figures for them. And they're like I'm not going to have any of their enemies. Toltecs, same thing. Nobody makes Toltec figures. You could probably fudge them with Aztec figures, but they're all like one troop type. So like, why even do that? And neither one of those two have flags or banners or nothing. So, out. That's the first two I can think of. But I tell you what, armies that you think would suck were actually interesting. I was actually looking at building a Paeonian army, and a Paeonian army is a shit army, right? But they make some figures that would be pretty cool. Let me read who these guys are. So they got a light horse general or foot hypaspist that can be either a fast or a solid auxilia. Then they have another light horse. Then they can have one solid or fast auxilia. And then they can have 7 javelin men that can either be fast auxilia or soloi, and then 2 soloi. But they can have allies as Thracians, right? 47? Isn't 47 Thracians? 48 is Thracians. What's Illyrians as allies? Okay, they make figures for Illyrians. Or 218C. Who the hell is that? Ooh, that's a successor, isn't it? Cassandros. So, and that's an army nobody freaking has. So even like, that's an army nobody would look at and say, nobody's going to build those guys. I would. The big draw not to build them would be like, I've got to invent a lot of stuff. But I think I could do it. I've seen some of their stuff and they have like like a vertical stripe on some of their clothing, like one. I'd build them. I think Old Glory makes them. That'd be pretty cool. Have an army nobody has. Definitely Saloy Cillian is capable. So I like doing the unusual armies. Paeonians are a tribe that's north of Macedon. Oh, we were talking about it last night. The early Macedonian list would be cool because that one guy that I read about that used a goat banner. That's a nice alternative to a standard Macedonian army. Early Macedonian. So just about every army is pretty interesting. There's really very few exceptions that I just absolutely wouldn't build them. And it's just because it would be boring to paint them, and it would be boring to play them with the troop type, with the troop types that they have. And boring just meaning they just have basically one troop type. Now, I'm not sure these guys have a helmet. Is this a helmet that they have or a cap? I'll have to determine that later. Luckily, I don't think I'm going to get to the point where I got to make that decision tonight. Well, just plugging along here. You had a Syracusan army. Good choice. Good choice. The problem with the Syracusan army, well, I don't know about a problem. The challenge would be to make them look like the Syracusan and not just another Greek army. But that's a really good list. I think it's a list suited really well for me. I like hoplites. And a Syracusan army that was crap on paper, had lots of inferior troops, but had a tyrant who was a genius in control. Loved using that army and hardly never enjoyed. You loved using that army and never enjoyed my games. Yeah. Evening. Celtic woad usage. British infantry, page 115, armies and enemies of Imperial Rome. Do the Gauls. Naked Gauls with Rome, with woad, with blue. You call it whatever you want. I want completely blue naked dudes. I want to laugh about shit, but I don't want to just do it because I can. I mean, and I don't want to build ancient Brits. I got too many people that I know that already have that army. There's nothing wrong with it. Just I think Celts are more useful. Oh, well, I'll have to look into it. Now see, those guys, if I'm building Gauls, I'm using Zyston figures. Why? They're big. And Gauls were freaking big compared to Romans. They were big. Like Franks, I'd love to build a Frank army. They look like shit, okay? They've got these striped clothes that just look silly. But I would like the challenge of making them not look silly. And I'm sure I could pull it off. So I don't have a super incentive to like sit there and build another Roman army, somebody that looks really professional. I prefer building the regular looking armies. There's enough people that build the regular looking armies. You guys don't need me for that. I want to paint the crappier looking guys and make them look like, man, I want to use those guys. You guys have seen an army that's like irregular looking troops that's not a awesome troop types and stuff, but they just look really interesting and they'd be fun to use. Yes, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. Celtic, yeah, Armies. I've got that book. I'll have to do a deep dive. Well, I'll have about 14 hours to look into that. That'll be one of the things that'll look in on our drive. Man, because if I can do Gauls that are freaking all blue, that'd be awesome. Jokes just write themselves. And they got to be fully naked, so you can make people like all squeamish that wouldn't be able to handle that. Like, dude, they did that in real life. It's not like, Never seen that. Naked dudes would put pitch in their hair, kind of like they do today. They had a thing. I was doing research on it, and or looking. I wasn't doing a deep dive, just a dive, and I came across some pictures of something they had in the UK a couple years ago, where they did some kind of art, living art project. I guess they smoked a lot of weed and came up with that one, and like they took some town in England, and like hundreds of people, maybe even thousands of people, just painted themselves like multiple colors of blue and just sat around in like big piles, like freaking naked. And people would take pictures of them. Yeah, it's like, what kind of stuff, what do you have to smoke to make you want to do that? Dionysus, general of Syracusan army, really interesting guy. Nobody messed with him. There's a couple of guys that are really interesting. Is it a Gothocles? There's a Syracusan guy in the First Punic War, I want to say, and he kicked freaking ass. And the other guy that's really interesting that I get him mixed up with is Xanthippus. But Xanthippus, I think, was a Spartan general or an Athenian general that was hired by Carthage in the First Punic War, and he stopped Attilius and captured him. I forget who it was, but there was a Syracusan general that was badass. He was a badass dude. But that's a really cool army list. But I'd have to make them navally looking. Even more than say an Athenian army, because I believe that's a littoral army. I believe it's a littoral army. What is it, like Book 2.8? I think that's who they are. Book 2.8, Book 2.9. Oh, okay. It has two. It has in Sicily and Africa. Well, I'd do both. That's a really good army. The army in Africa is Cav General or Spear General, 6 hoplites, then another hoplite or solid warband Gauls, and the solid ox or a cavalry, a bolt shooter, there you go, or fast auxilia, or a solid horde, and a light horse, and a Siloi, or a Pasili. And they can have Numidian allies. 156B. Who the hell's 156B? It's gotta be like an Italian city. Cyrene. More hoplites. Yeah, that's a cool hoplite army. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Syracuse. I've seen people use that army. But I wouldn't make them generic hoplites. They would be guys that would have, naval type things on a lot of their shields, like tridents or dolphins. You've seen the hoplite stuff with dolphins on them. I think that would be pretty freaking cool. Those guys are just asking for a bunch of guys with Corinthian style helmets. I love Corinthian style helmets. They're badass looking. So, in a nutshell, there's a lot of stuff I want to do. And the more I read about history, the more stuff I want to do. It's just, I think I'm wise enough not to try to work on everything at once. I can't be into everything. Wise man once said, I can't be into everything. Well, you could be into everything, but then, you're doing little bits and pieces here and there, and that's really unsatisfying. You never have anything to show for it if you jump around all over the place. Wise man once say, I can't be into everything. Corinthian style helmets are some of the best. They're like the best. I love them. I freaking love them. They're probably impractical as hell. I don't care. They look awesome. Freaking awesome. But, you can't have every army with them on. Got to mix it up a little bit. Like the helmets I can't stand are like the later Spartan helmets, where they're just like a freaking hat on the top. you know, don't care for how those look. He used rowers in camp to march up behind enemy carrying spears, looked like they were getting reinforced while in the middle of the battles. Huh. I indeed did say that. Yes, yes, you did. It's a good saying. And it's an honest saying. You can't be into everything. You get, and you know, we only have a limited amount of attention and time. So, you know, if you get involved in too many things, everything just gets diluted and you don't have anything to show for it. All right, how are we looking color-wise? I think that's about right. Maybe go a little bit more. A pain in the ass to paint more than one guy at a time, but I don't know that it's that much of a time savings on for me, but yeah, we're already on this horse. What the hell, right? I also said hands and eyes off. Yeah. And now you added a KK. I don't remember seeing KK on there. I'm not sure I know who that is. Oh, man. Let's get back to this color here. not, the part where you're doing these folds on clothes is actually one of my favorite parts. I really do enjoy it. Two a.m. Ooh. Well, not good night. Good morning. Thanks for stopping by as always, John. We will see you tomorrow night. I got a lot of stuff I got to do if I want to get these. If I want to work on another army in about a month. All right. How did we do highlighting wise? Well, maybe go a little bit lighter with this guy in a few places. Okay. Let this guy. And this guy. All right. I'm actually going to take this coffee and get it the hell out of here before I have more of it and won't be able to sleep until 5 a.m. tomorrow. Be right back. Okay, well that took a little longer than I had planned. Had to go switch some things in the laundry. Well, if you want to work on that other army, you need to paint like a madman, Tony. Let me pull up a lounge chair and I'll send for Rick to cheer you on. I don't know, Rick's out hanging out with, what is it? Amy Alley, or whatever the hell her name is. Whatever that toothless wonder that lives out of the shopping cart in that alley in Oklahoma. Toothless wonder. Yeah, well, like I say, I'll get them done. The most important thing is that I'm happy with how they turn out. Everything else is immaterial. I could probably get a lot more done not being filming, but I would have already gone and done something else. That hadn't been the case. So all right, blue pants. Yep. And this is a big unit that's slow. These guys are eight figures for one unit. Try Art de la Guerre. Lots of people play it. I won't be playing it. I'm not learning another system. I will, at some point, when I get tired of DBA, I'm going to make my own thing. And it'll be DBA sized. And everything I dislike about DBA, which isn't a lot, but everything that could be better, that's what I'll mess with. I don't see any point in doing that anytime soon. It's not very stress relieving to work on rules. It is to paint, and it would just keep me from painting. And if I don't get around to ever doing it, well, then I'm just enjoying the rules that we do have. So. Because I haven't seen any other games out there that really cover all the bases, but it's not really a priority. Alleyway Alley, okay. Played a lot of field goal, I enjoyed it, but some of the matchups were broken. Even historical ones? Yeah, and I plan on doing more scenarios. I plan on doing more scenarios and have people play both sides, and, you know. Warband versus Legion's broken beyond repair. So it's broken in that system too. That's a lot of Art de la Guerre at least has skirmishers that shoot at a distance. I watched a couple people playing them, and it looked like it had some potential. But, you know, the reality is that do people in the area that you're in already play the game? If they do, I say go for it. If it's something that I don't think is near perfect, I'm not going to jump ship and start playing a game that I already see doesn't cover everything I want to do right off the bat. I would just rather just create something out of nowhere. I mean, if I have to create players for a game, I might as well be completely sold on what the game is. If there's people that are already playing, I don't know, Hail Caesar, let me just throw something out there, in your area, and everybody wants to play Hail Caesar historical, and it isn't half bad, yeah, do that. But if I have to create interest from scratch on something, I might as well just do it on something that I can modify, you know? Because the reality is if I'm going to have to start people playing a game from scratch, I'm going to make it easier to teach, because DBA is a great game, but it is not user-friendly. And it needs to be easier for people to understand the game if I'm going to burn all the calories and trying to get it up off the ground. So, Aloe Alley's been squeezed just about everyone at the convenience store at one time or another. Step out for a little bit, not feeling great from intestinal issues. We'll say Art de la Guerre. Yeah, I don't think Art de la Guerre cost $100. Maybe Fuel to Glory. But, you know, I think every rule set has something going for it. I don't know that anybody gets anything right. I mean, I love the pip mechanism of DBA. I love that. That's just freaking brilliant. I wouldn't have come up with it, you know? So, you know, and my fallback thing is, if I ever do that, I'm going to use DBA 3.0 in Armies, because I can't just right now say, yeah, 20 years from now, the stuff I'm painting right now might be worthless to me. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't jump ship. I'm not going to. I don't mind building other armies. I just don't want to be self-rendering my stuff useless. It just doesn't make any sense. So, enjoy DPA, trying basic impetus change. You know, I wanted to try basic impetus. You know, basic impetus is basically 4 times as big. Okay, the units are twice as wide and twice as deep. So I think most units would be 4 stands instead of 1. So I'm like, well, why don't you just like have all the distances? And it's a DBA sized board. I think it ends up being like 18 by 24 or something like that, just to get the mechanics. I don't want to paint more figures. I want to paint more armies. I don't want to paint more figures in each army. You know, there's too many armies that interest me for me to say is, you know, I don't want to paint, you know, 30 stands of Parthians, where I can just paint 12 or 14 or 9 or something like that and then move on to something else. You know, because it's not like I only want to play one army. I want to play lots of different ones and experience different things. So, I just wish it was easier to teach to people, because, you know, it takes a special kind of idiot to put up with this game the way it's written for 20 freaking years. And even though some of us are willing to do it, other people aren't. And I think that really affects the growth of it. And not really the growth, but you got to keep getting new players, because some people just get burned out on systems. So, you know, and that's what happens to us at a con. Well, it's really hard for us to get more than 10 players, because we have probably 20 people to draw from. But one guy can't make it, or one guy had a death in the family, or this guy's on vacation. So you lost 3, but you got 3 new players, so you're still at 10 that show up, you know, or 8, you know. You have to constantly get an influx of folks to come in, because there's always things that come up where not everybody can attend. DBMM is a brilliant game, but so hard to play. I agree. I think that Mitch and I would love it. You know, like you roll, oh shit, it's raining. But I just don't want to play the game 150 times wrong. before I realize how to play it and play it correctly. Because I'm constantly experiencing it, and it's just too much of an uphill climb. You know, DBMM needs something like what Advanced Squad Leader had, that was computer moderated. Like, it would take you step by step. Okay, now roll for weather. Okay, I roll an 8. All right, enter 8. What happens with an 8? It's partly cloudy, and you can put one of these things just so you don't miss something. You know, I don't want to play the rules wrong, because they may be great, but I'm playing them incorrectly, so I think that the rules are something that they aren't. I just don't have it in me. You know, I think that we'd all enjoy it. There's no doubt about it. I just don't have it in me to play a game that many times. We still get stuff wrong. You know, we played this stupid game over 2,000 times and we still get shit wrong. You know, we're going to get DBM wrong all kinds of ways. So, but extra details, I'd love to have extra details. Now, I think Phil Barker's brilliant. I just don't think it's right that we, those of us that are trying to get people motivated in this game, are being punished by having to look through the rules this many times. And, you know, most of it is not that you don't understand the rules. Most of it is that the stuff isn't in the rule book where most people would put it in. That's most of it. So, because nothing's ever repeated a second time. So I would repeat things, you know, when it was a right time to bring it up, you know. So, like I've said before, if I came up with something, it may not be as good as Phil, because Phil's a sharp guy and he's been doing it for a while, but it would be a lot easier for people to understand, because, you know, I'm not as sharp a guy. So, you know, got to speak in small sentences, use bullet point, one thought, one particular thought in one bullet point, easier to point out, you know. But his stuff is really, he's a really sharp guy and has some really innovative ideas. And, you know, it's just a shame that it's so difficult to get through it, because people could be playing his game wrong and not really appreciating it for as much as it is, just through human error, not trying to be deceitful. So, only the local guys plays DBA because it's been around so long. They have some experience with it. They get the concepts. Yeah, and that's why I've stuck with it, because you can just sit down and start rolling dice and have exciting things happen. And exciting things happen all the time. All the time. Every game, almost every game has epic, I wish they made a movie about this experience type stuff that happens. And it's just what keeps me coming back for more. So, and I'm not interested in making money on it, so, you know, that's not my motivator, you know. All right, false alarm. Discomfort went away. Sorry, Mike, very frugal with my money, especially in the hobby. Won't spend that kind of money on a rule, especially when I already own Field of Glory. Arc de la Guerre isn't that expensive. There's no way it's more than $50. Should be free as much as it draws on other rules, but I'm not going to go there. Actually, you know, that's not the problem that I have with it. The problem I have with it is that other people take other people's work and they don't even give them credit. It's almost like, you know, some French guy just invented it all on his own. It's like, come on, man, you need to be humble, a little humble, you know. But I don't play that because nobody in this area plays it. So if I'm going to start from scratch, I'm just going to create my own thing that's, you know, that'll still feel have the same feel of the same type of command, make the same kind of decisions, pip mechanism, those kind of things. But, I'd give Phil credit where it is. I'm not going to sell my rules for anything, but I want to copyright them in a way so somebody can't just say, well, you may not sell them, but I'm going to sell them and put my name on them. Well, that's not cool, because that's a dick move. You don't do things like that. What were you, raised by a communist? Who the hell does shit like that? That's some dishonorable stuff. But it may never happen. Doesn't matter. I'm still enjoying playing things, and well, I don't know how long I'm going to paint, but I'm definitely stopping at 10. Definitely. Whether I like it or not. I got a water bottle. I need to hydrate. See a few games of it on, so I wasn't impressed. Played Field Glory a few times, had a blast each time. That's why I'm going with Field Glory. I would want a separate commander stand. I want pips. I want a separate commander. I want pre-measuring. Pre-measuring saves so much. It just changes the attitude of the game completely. Because I've played games that don't have pre-measuring. That is just, you just solve so many problems by just allowing that. What are other things that I would not compromise on? Oh, you wouldn't have to line up to fight. It's just really unnatural when you're having to do all that geometric crap. And it can be done. Some people say, oh, you've never done. We have. I've played some test games. It can be done. You just have to be sharp about it. You just have to play test. You have to play test it with somebody you can play test at least once a week, every week. And you'll get through it and try to break it. I think having a third of your army killed is too much. I would have gone with half. But again, I'd also probably do something that when you're a third, you start rolling. And it doesn't always happen at the same time. So, just things to consider, you know. Well, I recommend if you do play with yourself, make sure you film it, because you can make some money on the hub. No, it helps talking your way through it. I would, if I did not live somewhere now around someone that played DBA, I would just film solo games, and it would be okay. I mean, it wouldn't be as good, but it would be okay, because exciting things do happen. So, but I want a separate general stand. It's cool. You can make, Scipio or Hannibal or Alexander or whatever. You can go and, do different things and, make a little round stand that wouldn't have to be much bigger than, this. And, or maybe a little bit bigger and put some guys on it or whatever. You put the little name Alexander. I think it'd be awesome. I've seen other games do it, and that's the kind of stuff that appeals to me. Field of Glory has separate command stands. The computer game has no commanders? Well, it does, but if you lose one, it doesn't really matter. It's not... Funny and basic impetus, you're not allowed to line up. It'd be interesting to see how that works out. Yeah, Armadi's that way too. I showed up to play Armadi instead of DBA. I didn't even know about DBA, and it deals with it as well. Like about Field of Glory battles, you don't have to be in front on to attack a unit. As the fight goes on, you feed bases into the fight. Yeah. Look at it, get inspired by it, and then come up with your own rules that are easier to understand and easier to teach to people. I think that's the advantage of making your own system, is that you could format it in a way that is easier for people to understand. So, I've played the Field of Glory computer game quite a bit, but I have no interest in playing against the computer. It's just I don't give a shit. And I've played tournaments against people, and I don't know them face to face, so I don't care about them either, And I used to be able to play computer games a really long time, and I would be absorbed by it, and that's just not me anymore. It doesn't keep me interested. Been there, done that. Don't have anything to show for it. Don't have anybody to talk to about my experience. I paint anybody can play a computer game. Talking out loud and talking things out, and it was definitely better than just thinking to myself. It's actually a lot of fun. Miniature wargaming for me is like watching a good historical novel play out on the tabletop. Yep. Have a good, what's the word I'm thinking of? Narrative. It builds a good narrative. If you line up, you have to randomize a slight shift. How interesting. That's Art de la Guerre? Let's see. Basic impetus. Okay, basic impetus, you're not allowed to line up. Okay, I have basic impetus, and the rules are beautiful. And I actually like the fact that some armies have 9 units and some have 13. What's great about my situation, not actually playing games, I can just focus on the painting and basing of the hobby, which is more appealing to me. I liked it when there was no conventions, because I wasn't tempted to to have to paint something for the convention. I'm just painting the next thing I want to do, and there's not really any hurry to get them done. You know, they'll get done when they get done. And I kind of have that attitude now as well. I'm not, you know, these guys will either get done for the show or they won't. And I'm not starting something until these guys are complete. So, anywho, we got something done tonight anyways. It's better than nothing. We'll have pants and shirts done. Then we got bows to do on every guy, the fleshy bits. The hat or helmet, I haven't decided which one of the two it is. It's probably just a hat. Shoes. These guys don't have that much stuff on equipment I have on there. A couple of these guys have some short swords. Some swords. Some swordage. Assorted swords.